But Job answered and said, Hear diligently my speech, and let this be your consolations. You all are trying to give me, you're trying to preach to me, but really if you wish to aid me in my grief, then just listen to me, just let me vent. Suffer me, or allow me, that I may speak, and after that I have spoken, mock on. As for me, is my complaint to man? And if it were so, why should not my spirit be troubled? Let's just take a look at this real quick. For they would not regard, nor even rightly understand me, his friends, but my complaint is to God, who will allow me to speak, though you will not. Mark me, and be astonished, and lay your hand upon your mouth. Even when I remember, I am afraid, and trembling taketh hold on my flesh. Now this verse 6 is going to be the groundwork for the next few verses. He says, even when I remember, I am afraid. In essence, the very remembrance of what is past fills me with dread and horror. As Job well knew that the account he was about to give of the prosperity of wicked men, however necessary to his argument, would have something shocking in it to the ears of those to whom it was addressed, they would even accuse him, after what he's about to say, they will accuse him of being not just an atheist, but outright evil for what he's about to say. Wherefore do the wicked live? Why do the wicked live? Become old, yea, are mighty in power. Their seed is established, in their sight with them, and their offspring before their eyes. Their houses are safe from fear, neither is the rod of God upon them. What Job is doing right here is he's giving a very contrary reality check to the arguments of his friends. They're saying if a man is wicked, then evil will be upon him all his days, and he'll live a very short life. What Job is telling him is, I have seen wicked men whom have become old, and they've prospered, they've become mighty in power, and they've gained tremendous riches, and it seems like no trouble ever comes upon them. And the focus of Job is that which we see on the outside. Now, inwardly, they're tormented. Mentally, they're worried about their own death, more money, more problems. So no doubt the richer that they are, the more stress that they have. But outwardly, it appears like they're prospering. Their bull gendereth and faileth not. Their cow calveth and casteth not her calf. They send forth their little ones like a flock, and their children dance. They take the timbrel and harp and rejoice at the sound of the organ. They spend their days in wealth, and in a moment go down to the grave. Therefore they say unto God, Depart from us while they live. Depart from us, for we desire not the knowledge of thy ways. What is the Almighty, that we should serve him? And what profit should we have if we pray unto him? Huge point that Job is bringing out right here. He says they're prospering, so they never call upon God because they don't feel like they need God. Pulpit commented at this point, the wicked, having prospered so long and so greatly without making any religious profession, they never go to church, they never pray, they never call out to God. Matter of fact, they'll do the opposite. They'll blaspheme every moment and live in complete filth, commit adultery, fornications, everything. They see no reason, these wicked men, they see no reason to believe that they would prosper more if they made a religious profession or called upon God. And you and I, we know of many, many people like this. We see them on TV. See, back in those days, they didn't have such publications as we do, such mediums as televisions, magazines, and all of this. They didn't have any of that. It was just mainly word of mouth, gossip, rumors, and which spreads pretty rapidly in a small community. But now we can see throughout the whole world how the wicked prosper like crazy, at least outwardly. It is said, though, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Now, that's often applied to the stature of people, but the way that I'm looking at this is the status of them, how much that they're prospering. And so if you look at it in that context, then the higher they rise, the harder they fall. Who is to say that the many years of prosperity a wicked man lives are not just building him up for a more devastating fall? We're too short-sighted in this realm. We see things way too presently, whenever we should see in the future tense, really, of nearly everything. Who's to say that their prosperity isn't building them up for a more devastating fall, either to bring them to repentance or to sudden death and damnation, even greater terrors upon them? Lo, their good is not in their hand. The counsel of the wicked is far from me. Now pay attention to this, because they're actually going to quote Job here in a couple of chapters. They're going to be quoting Job and sarcastically making fun of that statement. He says, I hold no company with the wicked. How oft is the candle of the wicked put out, and how oft cometh their destruction upon them? God distributeth sorrows in his anger. They are as stubble before the wind, and as chaff that the storm carrieth away. God layeth up his iniquity for his children, meaning for the wicked man's children. He rewardeth him, and he shall know it. This is almost like Job is in agreement with their argument that even the children of wicked men, they feel the aftershock of the calamities that God brings upon them, because they've been accusing that of Job. Look, Job, your children are all dead because of your evil. His eyes will see his destruction, and he shall drink of the wrath of the Almighty. For what pleasure hath he in his house after him, when the number of his months is cut off in the midst? Quite the telling remark on the wicked men right here. For what pleasure hath the wicked man in his house after him, meaning that they really pay no heed because they're so self-centered. Most wicked people have very little care of what happens after they're dead. Shall any teach God knowledge, seeing he judgeth those that are high or exalted in the earth? One dieth in his full strength, being wholly at ease and quiet. His breasts are full of milk, and his bones are moistured with marrow. Now this is poetic language right here, and what it means is the milk pails of a man. That's what it's pointing towards. And another dieth in the bitterness of his soul, and never eateth with pleasure. So one dies in his strength, and another dies in the bitterness of his soul, simply denoting how the wicked die in many different circumstances of life. Some are prosperous, some are torn down and poor and all of this. So he's really telling them there's a variety of ways that the wicked man suffers at the hands of God. He says you can't judge whether I'm wicked or good based on my current situation. They shall lie down alike in the dust, and the worms shall cover them. Behold, I know your thoughts, and the devices which ye wrongfully imagine against me. For ye say, where is the house of the prince? And where are the dwelling places of the wicked? Have ye not asked them that go by the way, like travelers? And do ye not know their tokens, that the wicked is reserved to the day of destruction? They shall be brought forth to the day of wrath. The idea of Job is that they might have learned from such travelers that such people as the wicked were reserved for future destruction, and that calamity did not immediately overtake them. And he's saying this is a worldwide known thing. How are you men ignorant of this? Who shall declare his way to his face, and who shall repay him what he hath done? And he's speaking of the wicked man. Who's going to confront the wicked man? Who's going to come against him? Yet shall he be brought down to the grave, and shall remain in the tomb. Job is here pursuing the same way of reasoning which he did before, and showing that the wicked mighty man is so far from being always punished in this world that he often does what he pleases without any to control him, or so much as open their lips against him. And just to remind you all, do not build your foundational doctrines on the book of Job, like salvation, eternity, what happens after death, because they did not know much back in those ancient days. And so whenever he says that they are brought down to the grave and shall remain in the tomb, this is just poetic language as they remain in the grave. It would only be later on that more revelations were revealed regarding what happens after death. The clods of the valley shall be sweet unto him, and every man shall draw after him, as there are innumerable before him. How then comfort ye me in vain, seeing in your answers there remaineth falsehood? Chapter 22. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, and this is his third time answering, believed to be the oldest among all four of them. Then Eliphaz answered and said, can a man be profitable unto God, as he that is wise may be profitable unto himself? Is it any pleasure to the Almighty that thou art righteous? Or is it gain to him that thou makest thy ways perfect? And what Eliphaz is doing, in my honest assessment of those first few verses, is that of kicking him even harder while he's down by saying, Job, you're not profitable to God whatsoever. You keep claiming that you're righteous and you're just making yourself less profitable. But then he goes on and says, will he reprove thee for fear of thee? Will he enter with thee into judgment? And so he's saying, will God reprove of thee? Will he come against you because he fears you? He fears your greatness and all of this. This is a figurative, but he's trying to get a point across. And then he says, will he enter into judgment with thee? That is, will he in reverence to thee, O Job, out of respect to so great a person, speaking ironically, in condescension to one of so much consequence, will he regard thy request, so often made, as to come into judgment with thee, and to admit of thy cause being pleaded before him? And now we see Eliphaz just attack Job. Is not thy wickedness great, and thine iniquities infinite? For thou hast taken a pledge from thy brother for naught, and stripped the naked of their clothing. Thou hast not given water to the weary to drink, and thou hast withholden bread from the hungry. But as for the mighty man, he had the earth, and the honorable man dwelt in it. And what it's believed that Eliphaz is referring to is the mighty man, those in whom Job has hired to do all of this with him. They're insinuating that this is how Job gained all of his great wealth before. Oppressed the poor, hired men to do all this. Thou hast sent widows away empty, and the arms of the fatherless have been broken. These are all baseless claims. And thou sayest, how doth God know? Can he judge through the dark cloud? Thick clouds are a covering to him, that he seeth not, and he walketh in the circuit of heaven. Hast thou marked the old way which wicked men have trodden? What he's saying is, Job, you're thinking that God doesn't see your evil sin, but God sees you very, very clearly, which were cut down out of time, whose foundation was overthrown with a flood. It's believed that he's referring to Noah's flood right there, which said unto God, depart from us, and what can the Almighty do for them? Yet he filled their houses with good things, but the counsel of the wicked is far from me. Once again, I've told you all to remember that whenever Job said it, he's mocking Job right here. And they believe that Job has been taking up for the wicked, that he's been trying to lighten up their view of wicked men by saying, look, God, he allows these wicked people to prosper on the earth. And they don't agree with that. They believe that God always strikes wicked men just like he's done with Job. So in order for their argument to have any solid groundwork, they have to come against what Job said. So he sarcastically repeats what Job was implying. Yet he filled their houses with good things, yet God gave them good things, but the counsel of the wicked is far from me. Therefore snares are round about thee, and sudden fear troubleth thee, or darkness that thou canst not see, and abundance of waters cover thee. Is not God in the height of heaven? And behold, the height of the stars, how high they are. The righteous see it, and are glad, and the innocent laugh them to scorn, meaning that the righteous see the downfall of the wicked. Whereas our substance is not cut down, but the remnant of them the fire consumeth. You see, Job, those in whom stand by God, we keep all of our substance, unlike you, who has lost all of yours. Acquaint now thyself with God, and be at peace, thereby good shall come unto thee. Receive, I pray thee, the law from his mouth, and lay up his words in thine heart. If thou return to the Almighty, thou shalt be built up. Thou shalt put away iniquity far from thy tabernacles. Then shalt thou lay up gold as dust, and the gold of Ophir as the stones of the brooks. Yea, the Almighty shall be thy defense, and thou shalt have plenty of silver. For then shalt thou have thy delight in the Almighty, and shalt lift up thy face unto God. Thou shalt make thy prayer unto him, and he shall hear thee, and thou shalt pay thy vows. Thou shalt also decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. When men are cast down, then thou shalt say, there is lifting up, and he shall save the humble person. He shall deliver the island of the innocent, and it is delivered by the pureness of thine hands. Chapter 23. Then Job answered and said, even today is my complaint bitter. My stroke is heavier than my groaning. The burdens upon him is so much heavier than what he's actually outwardly displaying. Oh, that I knew where I might find him. that I might come even to his seat. You see, Eliphaz is saying, if you just call upon God, he says, then he'll forgive this secret wickedness of yours that you've lived all these long years. And Job is saying right here, there's nothing I would like better than to see the face of the Lord shine upon me. I would order my cause before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know the words which he would answer me and understand what he would say unto me. Will he plead against me with his great power? No, but he would put strength in me. There the righteous might dispute with him. So should I be delivered forever from my judge, meaning that the Lord would forgive him at that point. Behold, I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I cannot perceive him. On the left hand, where he doth work, but I cannot behold him. He hideth himself on the right hand, that I cannot see him. But he knoweth the way that I take, when he hath tried me, tested me. I shall come forth as gold. My foot hath held his steps, his way have I kept and not declined, meaning I have tried to stay in the right path with God. Neither have I gone back from the commandment of his lips. I have esteemed the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. Now pay close attention, friends. But he is in one mind, and who can turn him? And what his soul desireth, even that he doeth. And here we have another clear showing of the book of Job's antiquity, that it's a very old way of thinking of God. The revelations concerning God reasoning with his servants, as he says, come, let us reason together. That wouldn't be written until Isaiah. And repenting of the calamities promised, as he did with Nineveh, once that they cried out unto him. Whenever he granted Hezekiah 15 additional years because of his prayer. Or in the New Testament, whenever Christ healed the Gentile woman's demon-possessed daughter upon her pleading. Remember, he says it's not meet to give unto the dogs the food meant for the children. And she says, Lord, but even the dogs eat of the crumbs. And he says, great is thy faith, daughter. Now your daughter is healed. Such merciful acts of the Lord were not known to man in Job's day like that you could reason with God. He therefore concludes that God cannot be reasoned with as a compassionate father and friend, but views him rather as the heavy-handed judge of creation. Do remember, friends, it hadn't been very long since Noah's flood at the time of Job, so the judge of the earth would have been well solidified within the minds of the people back then. For he performeth the thing that is appointed for me, and many such things are with him. Therefore am I troubled at his presence. When I consider, I am afraid of him. For God maketh my heart soft, or fearful. And the Almighty troubleth me, because I was not cut off before the darkness, neither hath he covered the darkness from my face.